In his statement, Mr. Mwaura indicated that the former President Uhuru Kenyatta received a lump sum payment of 48 million shillings as gratuity. I would like to confirm that that is correct, that he did receive the lump sum, but I also want to emphasize that gratuity is an entitlement accorded to every public officer on the expiry of service or once their contract is done. And just to give but an example of a few is the former Chief Justices, all former members of Cabinet, commanders of defense forces, that is CDFs, including the then Deputy President. He also received a gratuity, and including myself as a former spokesperson of State House. It is true that the former President is receiving his personal monthly allowances that are paid by the pension fund that is domiciled at Treasury, and he also has the medical cover. Now, on the issue of the retired president enjoying a fully furnished and maintained office space, as alluded to in the statement, this took us by surprise. Because it is public knowledge that State House has been very clear on the position of the office in Nyari as the only office that the president should use based on the fact that the office has been bought by government. A position that was clearly articulated by the State House spokesperson, Hussein Mohammed, during a question and answer session when he was doing the press briefing of President Ruto's visit to the United States of America. So the statement that the former president enjoys a fully furnished and maintained office of his choice provided by government is incorrect. To date, the office matter has never been addressed and has never been resolved. But I'd, however, want to note, and I'd like you to note that the office in Nyari was selected by the former president, the late former President Mwai Kibaki, suitable for himself. Just a note that I'd like you to take. Then I would like to confirm also that the office confirms that the former president was indeed allocated vehicles for his personal use, and that is 2 Toyota Land Cruisers, like stated in the statement, 1 Mercedes-Benz, and 1 Range Rover that is in use by the former First Lady, Mama Margaret Kenyatta. The 4 Toyota Prados that have been mentioned are in use as follows. 3 are used by the security detail that was given to the president, the former president, and 1 Toyota Prado that is being used by the office, as well as 1 Subaru Forester. Now, what the government spokesperson did not clarify is that the vehicles allocated to the former president for personal use were not new. They were in fact the cars that were part of his motorcade when he left Kasarani during the inauguration ceremony. And this was agreed upon by State House, that the former president uses these vehicles on transitional basis as they begin the process of procuring new vehicles as stipulated in the Presidential Benefits Act. That is 2 new vehicles of the retired president's choice, replaceable every 3 years, and each car having an engine capacity not exceeding 3,000 cc's. 2 four-wheel motor drive vehicles of the retired president's choice, also replaceable every 3 years. Each vehicle having an engine capacity of 3,000 to 4,000 cc's. Just a point of note as well. The late President Daniel Arap Moi and the late President Mwai Kibaki were allocated and maintained more than double the number of vehicles that have been allocated to the 3rd retired president to ensure optimum running of his office. There were fuel cards that were issued, and the fuel cards were given, as well as the maintenance of the vehicles, but that has not been done because the cards were blocked in the month of March 2023 to date, that is. I'll take that again. The fuel cards were given, however, they were cancelled and blocked by State House since March 2023 to date. There have been reports on some local dailies that stating that State House has undertaken repairs and maintenance of vehicles under the former president's office. That is incorrect. In fact, I want to say that I did receive calls from some journalists to verify incomplete forms provided by a State House official as evidence of services rendered towards repairs and maintenance. And despite my clarification, they still went ahead to quote these as valid documents of services rendered. And those copies of those incomplete forms you have in your press pack, you'll be able to peruse that. These forms, you'll see that they have the word approved at the corner, which is what was being used by State House to say that they have approved the services. That signature, I would like to clarify, ladies and gentlemen, belongs to the former State House Comptroller, that is Mr. Kinodhi Ambogwa, who is currently the AIE holder of the office of the third retired president. And those forms, or those requisitions, were not honored by the accounting officer, who is our accounting officer, that is the State House Comptroller. A complete requisition forms, just for your note, contains signatures and approval notes from heads of department. It is therefore the position of the office of the third retired president that the government of the day has not undertaken nor facilitated any repairs, maintenance of any vehicles under this office, neither have they fueled any cars under this office. As I finalize on the issue raised in the matter by the government spokesperson, the office still awaits the confirmation and communication on why they blatantly refuse to renew contracts of 2 professional staff members, the administrator, Mr. George Karaoke, and Mrs. Kanze Dena Mararo, who is the Director Communication. There is also the issue of unceremonious withdrawal and intimidation of staff via phone calls at midnight. We have provided a list of the complete staff serving, and would also like to clarify that the list that Mr. Mwaura presented in his statement had the wrong tally. Those members of staff that were there were 32 and not 33, when the Act provides for 34 members of staff. At this point, ladies and gentlemen, allow me now to present the official position of the Office of the Third Retired President of the Republic of Kenya. On the issue of the office, before retirement and during his retirement, the former President Kenyatta has been sought to undertake various international roles, especially within the region, in his capacity as a former head of state. And among them was his appointment as a peace facilitator by the East African Community Heads of State during the 22nd Ordinary Meeting of East Africa Heads of State Summit that was held on the 22nd of July 2022 in Tanzania, Arusha. These engagements necessitated that the need to identify and establish a suitable office for the former president to enable him carry out these roles and provide an operational base for various cadre of staff. Now, with no response from State House and a lack of commitment to finalize on the issue of the office space, His Excellency, the former president, identified a suitable office space, as you can see where we are, and went ahead to fully furnish and equip it from his pocket. A formal letter was written to State House requesting valuation of the office that was identified by the former President Kenyatta as suitable for him to carry out his duties. However, the office did not receive a response on the issue, and instead, the communication that the office received was via message, text message, by the then in charge, Mr. John Makumi. And in his statement, he indicated the estimates of the property in question, where we are, and that is the office that was selected by the former president. In your communication pack, or in your press kit, you will find the communication that alludes to this statement. To date, this office runs on the former president's goodwill as it waits upon action from State House. On the issue of vehicles, as indicated earlier, the former president is using vehicles given to him on a transitional basis. The office would like this to go on record, that after transition, a conversation on the purchase of vehicles as required by the Act commenced between the two offices. That conversation I have made available for you also on the kit, and it notes that the identification of vehicles was done, down to the color of the vehicle, and then the conversation froze. To date, no discussions have been revived. We don't know if the cars were purchased or not. On international trips, since retirement, the former President Uhuru Kenyatta has undertaken several official trips related to the roles and duties he has engaged in, and only 2 such trips have been honored. The trip to Ethiopia on matters concerning the peace process led by the African Union, and the one to Burundi that was the 11th summit of the heads of state and government of the East African Community on the issues pertaining to the peace process in the Democratic Republic of. Now the budget is the 4th issue. Now this is actually the core issue that the office seeks to have addressed: budget allocation. In the year 2022-2023, financial year 2022-2023, Parliament allocated this office 655 million shillings. To date, the office can only confirm absorption of roughly 28 million shillings, spread across payment of allowances for domestic travel, as well as facilitation of the 2 trips that I mentioned earlier that were honored. That is approximately 4.4% of the total budget for that particular year. And this does not include the payment of salaries and medical insurance. The financial year 2023-2024 that ends in a few weeks, the budget allocation for this office was 503 million shillings. The year is ending without the office having any access to this allocation. The total amount for the 2 years that we have not had access to this approximately 1 billion Kenya shillings. We can confirm that salaries have been paid, as well as medical insurance, but we cannot allude to how much it is. Now, in the coming year, which is 2024-2025, the budget allocation is 579 million shillings. Well, the office waits with bated breath to see if this will be honored. You see, the quagmire that this office is in is that the office cannot substantiate what has been used and where the monies have been used, since several requests and attempts to get budget returns from the accounting officer, who is the State House Comptroller, have fallen on deaf ears. We would also like to distance ourselves from budget estimates tabled in Parliament. Our position is that we had no input on the budget estimates that informed the allocation of 450 million shillings that Treasury projects to allocate the office of the 3rd retired president in the coming year of 2025-2026, which is 475 million shillings for the year 2026-2027, as was reported by the Star newspaper of the Tuesday, May 14th, 2024. You see, after budget estimates are approved by Parliament, the monies are disbursed to the accounting officers through Treasury, that our department or office is able to access the budget allocation through the accounting officer as per their requirements. And I just want to state that our accounting officer in this case is our State House Comptroller. The total cost of the plan is then submitted to Parliament as budget estimates. And once approved, the budget allocation will be under care of the accounting officer, who then is expected to allocate the monies to the department office. This process has not happened in our case. The lack of access to our rightful budget allocation has forced the former president, Uhuru Kenyatta, to run the office from his pocket, paying for all the bills the office incurs. Communication. The office notes with concern the choice of communication by State House to this office. State House chooses a verbal form of communication on official issues or chooses not to respond to correspondence by this office. This includes the requisition for fuel maintenance, office operations and facilitation, pending renewal of contracts and budget returns. We all know the importance of written communication in any office to maintain transparency and order. In the press kit that we have availed to you, you will see internal communication within the office to enable us account for actions taken following verbal non-committal communication from State House. We have also seen the continuous onslaught of the office on local dailies, as well as leaking of misleading documents by State House, presenting the office of the 3rd retired president in bad light to the public. It has never been the intention of this office to engage with State House via the public gallery on matters that should be handled between the two offices. The position of the office of the 3rd retired president is a respect of institutions, and as such has remained silent for the last 2 years, hoping for a formal engagement with State House. However, the continued address of the issue in the public domain has informed the move by this office to give a formal response on the real state of affairs. We call upon the relevant institutions led by Parliament, who are mandated to uphold the rule of law and defend the Constitution, the Auditor General, who is tasked to hold the government accountable in its expenditure, as well as the Controller of Budget, to look into the issues that we have raised. As an office, we are willing and ready to engage. However, it is our observation that that there's a lack of commitment and reluctance by the government in fulfilling the Presidential Benefits Act in totality. Now, there was an issue that was raised in a statement about Mama Ngina Kenyatta. So, as pertains the Act, we all know that Her Excellency Mama Ngina Kenyatta, in her capacity as a former First Lady and surviving spouse of the late President Jomo Kenyatta, is entitled to benefits amounting to 50% of her husband's pension. The 3 Range Rovers that Her Excellency Mama Ngina Kenyatta has in her possession were allocated to her by the late President Daniel Arap Moi and the late President Mwai Kibaki during their respective tenures, and replaced accordingly after every 3 years, that is. Now, clearly, the government spokesperson said that they gave her the cars, but clearly the government of the day has not provided her with any vehicles. In fact, we would like to clarify that on the 18th of July 2023, at 7 p.m., all her drivers and security detail allocated to her were withdrawn from their residences via phone. The claims in the media that personnel were reinstated is false. To Capital, fuel cards for her vehicles were also blocked since March 2023 to date, and vehicle maintenance denied. She fuels and maintains these government vehicles, one of which has been unserviceable for approximately over 1 year. We do note that there are other beneficiaries of the Presidential Retired Benefits Act, which include the former Prime Minister, Right Honorable Raila Odinga, the first retired Vice President, Honorable Mudi Awori, and the second retired Vice President, Honorable Kalonzo Musyoka. We also know that the current Prime Cabinet Secretary, Honorable Musalia Mudavadi, was also a beneficiary of this office before his new role in the current government. While the picture painted by Mr. Mwaura of the government's commitment to support the office of the retired president in accordance to the law is the ideal situation, it saddens this office to inform the public that unfortunately that picture does not exist. And our worry as an office is a precedence that is being set by the government of the day. Their decision to blatantly ignore execution of the Presidential Act No. 11 of 2023 seems to open up a Pandora's box that will leave a retired head of state at the mercy of the government of the day. And as Martin Luther King Jr. said, injustice anywhere is a threat everywhere, whatever affects one directly or indirectly. So help us God. And we would like to clarify that this is not what we would want to happen. This is not how we would want to engage, because we respect the rule of law. However, any matters arising, we do acknowledge that there are officers concerned, and we do hope that they will be able to pick it up and rest the issue. I conclude my statement, and now I'll take in questions. Yes, sir. Yes, Justice.
Is it true that the office of the fourth president of Kenya rejected the request for valuation of this property?
That is not true. You will see in your press pack that there's a letter that was written to State House, and there has been no response.
And is it also true that the office of the fourth president wants the government to pay rent for its private property?
I think what we need to understand here is that the suitable choice of office, and I've explained to you what informed him to be able to use this office. And actually, if I may just add to that, is that the offices that are being used currently had to be taken over, because what I've explained is that there were duties that needed to be taken over immediately. And despite our being able to reach out to the office of State House to be able to pay, or rather to be able to settle our office, has gone to deaf ears. The offices that we use are currently on that side, where you've just, on the other side where you're from. Those used to be actually servant quarters that were converted urgently so that the office can be able to be in use.
And finally, you said that your name, President,
yes. 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 Yes.
So how are you earning your salary?
That, unfortunately, we have not earned a salary for the last 2 years.
Question.
Yes. Yes, Ken.
Just wanted to know, in terms of the money the former president has spent from his own pocket, how
yes.
much is it? Will you be able to quantify? How much is it now And the issue of you're not earning a salary.
Yes.
So who's sustaining? I mean, you've got bills to pay. Who's paying for that?
Let's talk about savings. That's all that I can say about it. So just talk about savings. And I'm not able to actually quantify on how much it is that the president has been able to spend, because that includes fueling, it includes the foods that we're eating as a staff, travel bills, all those things, electricity. So I'm not yet able to compound in totality how much that is, but it's a rough amount. Madam Wahu is our administrator, our personnel officer. Maybe she can be able to answer that question.
Good afternoon, everyone. We do not have an exact figure of. Currently, we do not have an exact figure of exactly how much that he has spent, but that totals to the transport bills, every travel that he makes, catering bills as well, and any other running, administration, operational running of the office. But we don't have the exact figure at the moment.
But you require a refund if things go well.
Yeah.
We have the documents. We don't have the exact, the right figure, but we have all the documentation with us.
Yes. Yeah.
I have two questions. Number one, do you feel that State House is frustrating this office deliberately? And number two, you have talked about amounts of money that you're supposed to have received from 2020
3.
to 2023 up until now.
Yeah.
About 1 billion.
1 billion shillings.
So from, as far as you know, is that money released from National Treasury and it goes back somewhere, or it not released at all?
Okay. From the understanding that I have, and which you can go back and clarify, is that once Parliament allocates the money, I think I've also read it in my statement, the money goes to the accounting officer. For this office, the accounting officer is the controller of State House. So what happens is that once the money comes, we make a request for whatever it is we'll need, whether it's fueling, travel, and all that. So that money is supposed to be released to us by the accounting officer. That is one. On your second question, it is difficult to assess and understand why the actions that have been taken by State House have been taken, but we just notice that there's a reluctance, yes, towards aiding us. Yeah. Any other question? Yes. Yes, Sydney.
How far when it comes to peacekeeping or DRC, involved in that process? And secondly, I want to speak to the timing of this pressure and the political nature of what is happening in the country right now. The spokesman will speak some time back. So this timing is speaking to whatever is happening in the country politically.
Okay, to your first question, I think the pressure today was about the office and the status. So on peacekeeping, we will address that much later. In terms of the timing, you did realize that he did the presser, I think, last week on Friday. It was not a long time ago. He did the presser last week on Friday. Last week, but one on Friday, I think. Last week, but one on Friday. What we needed to do and why we took time was we wanted to ensure that what we are bringing before you is the true position and with evidence, so that we are not just alluding to a statement, but we want you to have the evidence so that you may be able to understand the correct position of this office and what we stand for and what we believe in and what is true, which is want to make it public. And the reason why we've been able to respond is because they formally responded through the government spokesperson, and we felt that that was now the opportunity for us as the office of the third retired president to also make our formal response so that people get to understand that this is where we are at. So it has nothing to do with any political indication in the country right now. Yeah.
And just one last one from me. The property where we are
Yes.
standing right now,
Yes.
where I say your house as the office of former president, actually does belong to the family of the former president.
Yes.
At this point, you're asking the government to rent out, to sort of rent out.
There was a conversation that happened during His Excellency's tenure concerning also the other beneficiaries of the office of the retired president. And there is actually a conversation that happened between State House and the AG's office. I'm just not able to have those documents right now, but it alluded to the fact that being able to rent an office that belongs or is related to the family was not a conflict in interest issue. That issue was raised with one of the former retired, or one of the beneficiaries. I'm just not able to name who it is right now. but it was concluded by the AG then that is not a conflict of interest. And that's why the former president made the decision to have the offices here. Yes. Yes. Yes.
My question is, the reason why the statement is actually structured on the office of the retired president.
Yes.
Because it has to be anchored within the law, and that is the Retirement
Benefits Act. Yes.
Don't you think there are terms and conditions that come to these benefits that perhaps the government feels have been flouted or are not being adhered to, especially touching on politics that could bring this complexity and gives them a good gray area not to do what you're asking them to do?
I know that one of the things that they talk about is his involvement in politics. And I think the correct position is that if you remember very clearly, immediately after inauguration, there was an NDC that was held by the Jubilee Party. And the process of that, the purpose of that NDC was to begin a process for him to be able to hand over chairmanship. But as we know, things went as they went, and the matter is currently in court. So, inevitably, he remains the chairman of Jubilee. Inevitably, because he's one of the Jubilee is one of the key parties of Azimio, he still remains in Jubilee. However, I think we can note anywhere that he has been inactive in terms of political activity. So I don't think that that should be a basis or a TOR that should necessitate the kind of treatment that the office of the retired third president is receiving.
And finally, the level of the former president and the level of the current president, the difference is former and current.
Yes.
Has there been attempts directly by the former president to speak to the current president with a view of sorting out these administrative issues, or it's exclusively left to the office of the administrator?
I think there is nothing that has necessitated there to be a conversation, because everything is, it's a rule of law. It's how things need to happen. It's the operations that would require for them to have a conversation. Yes.
I just wanted to know how desperate is the institution? How desperate are you? Because 2 years ago, the salary...
Well, we thank God for his mercies. That's not where we are at right now. But actually, it's not fair. Let's just say that it's not fair for us to have waited for 2 years and we still don't have an idea when that's going to end. Naam.
Hivi msimamo wa ofisi ya rais wa nne wa taifa la Kenya ni gani? Hivi huenda tukamwona labda katika Uhuru au itakuwepo na kama hayo. Hilo la kwanza. Kisha la pili, ninaomba utupe muhtasari katika lugha ya Kiswahili wapo utakubali mwishoni mwa kipindi hiki cha maswali na majibu.
Haya. Kuhusiana na swala hilo la siasa, nadhani ameshaweka wazi na umeona kwamba katika matendo yake kwamba hajajihusisha vyovyote vile na siasa. Watu kumtaja, wangependa kumtaja, kuna mapendekezo, na hii mapendekezo tu yako humu ambayo hayana uhakika wowote. Kwa hivyo sidhani kama itakuwa ni sawa kuweza kumuunganisha na masuala haya, manake yeye mwenyewe hajasimama akaweza kuyataja kama mambo ambayo yanahusika nayo. Wamekuwa wanapigiwa simu usiku na wanaambiwa waende katika station tofauti kuliko ile ambao wameletwa hapa. Yaani wanapigwa transfer kupitia simu. Wapo. Lakini kwa sababu pia wao ni wa maafisa wa serikali, tungependa kuwalinda. Yes, Moshoki.
The former CJ, Justice Maraka, complained of the same thing to the former president Uhuru was president. Is it fair to say this is the first time that is happening? Yet that happened in Ethiopia?
Sorry.
The former CJ.
Yes.
Maraka,
yes.
He complained of the same the former president.
But you see, the Chief Justice is not part of the Retired President's Benefit Act. He's a public servant. His matters are handled by judiciary. Right?
He was complaining of not getting what he deserved.
Yes. But that's what I'm saying. Their benefits are under judiciary, not the Presidential Benefits Act. Any Any other question?